Critics hated The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. It has an abysmal 52% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and reviewers said that it fails to back up its grand designs with enough substance to anchor the spectacle. I disagree vehemently. I read a bunch of critic reviews, and I'm baffled at some of the things that they wrote. Peter Bradshaw at The Guardian says, "In striving so earnestly for a redemptive and genuinely heroic happy ending, Stiller's movie jettisons the original's lightness." See, this confuses me. Is Walter Mitty a hollow film that doesn't have any substance, or is it so heavy that lightness can't be found? Here's a review that made me mad. "Our identification gives way to envy, and Mitty is another one of those enchanted people the rest of us can only dream of becoming." I'm sorry, AO, that you identify with this character so much up until the point where he actually, I don't know, does something cool. Then you get jealous of this character for doing something you'd never do in your own boring life. Seems reasonable. This is just the stupidest take of all time, but I will give him brownie points for being honest. I loved this movie, and audience members agree with me that it was a good film. In this video, I'll make the case for why The Secret Life of Walter Mitty is an underrated movie. This movie centers around Walter Mitty, a guy whose life is so boring that he daydreams incessantly. After the magazine he works for gets acquired and shut down, the new bosses want the final cover immediately, and that's typically supplied by photographer Sean O'Connell. Sean sends the final cover photo to Walter Mitty by mail, but for some reason Walter can't find the final cover photo. So he sets off to find Sean, whose last known location was in Iceland. Make no mistake, I don't think that Walter Mitty is some masterpiece of a film that everybody needs to put in their top 50 films list of all time. But I do think it was judged too harshly and not nearly as bad as many of the critics made it out to be. Let's talk about what I didn't like though. For one, I didn't like the cheesiness of this movie. The part where Sean decides to go to Iceland with Wake Up by Arcade Fire playing in the background is a little too cheesy. What made it worse is that life's motto is plastered on the background of wherever Walter Mitty's like flying through or running through or walking through. And I don't know, I think it's cheesy. Another thing I didn't love about this movie is that the daydreams get a little ridiculous. I didn't think that we needed to have a whole scene centering on Benjamin Button for like 2 minutes of the movies. We didn't need that. The daydreams in the first half of the movie are so different tonally from the more realistic, gritty scenes in the back half of the movie, and it just felt unbalanced as a result. Whenever I watch Walter Mitty, I feel like I have to get through the first part of the movie that's super whimsical and kind of ridiculous to get to the good part, which is the more meaningful scenes. But, the meaningful stuff is so worth it that I just look past all of the ridiculousness. Let's talk about what I loved. I loved Ben Stiller as Walter Mitty. For some reason, I feel like Ben connects personally to both sides of this character. The shy, socially awkward side of Walter and the fun, adventurous, funny side of Walter. He can connect to both of them. Ben, in this period of his life, was also trying to, reinvent himself as a film director. He didn't really want to be just an actor moving forward. This is what he said in one of the interviews. "I love acting, but what I love is the freedom you have as a director to tell all different kinds of stories. Whereas an actor, to a certain extent, you're just limited to who you are and what you can get cast in." I could feel through the screen Stiller's earnestness and personal connection to this character as he was going through his own transition in life. And I wasn't expecting to see that from the dude who played the eccentric owner of Globo Gym in Dodgeball. I think Sean Penn's character is super important to this movie too. We only hear him speak for about 5 minutes of the film's runtime, but we get the sense immediately that we're watching a guy who has been to every corner of the world and knows what life is all about. And he delivers perfectly in this scene between Walter and Sean when they finally meet. The thing I connected with the most, though, is this film's message to get off your cell phones and laptops and go live life. When the snow leopard appears for Sean and Walter asks Sean if he's ever going to take a picture of it. And Sean says,
"If I like a moment, me, personally, I don't like to have the distraction of the camera. I just want to stay in it."
That's crazy to hear from an actual photographer, right? But throughout this movie, we keep getting subtle hints that technology just might be ruining our lives. The new brass at Life magazine wants to scrap the magazine and go digital. The eHarmony guy tells Walter to maybe stop sending winks online and to just go talk to Cheryl. And Sean sends photographs taken on film rather than on a digital camera. This film is no doubt trying to tell us to stop taking photos of everything and to stay in the moment and to stop living through our cell phones. And I'm totally here for it. Knowing that this movie came out 10 years ago and things have only gotten worse makes this movie eerily prophetic. All right, so here's a couple things that critics said that I didn't exactly agree with. Linda Bernard writes, "If you love the Zoolander star and don't mind that this movie generates the occasional weak smile rather than huge laughs, then this self-indulgent CGI heavy Stiller world tour will make you happy indeed." I'm sorry, I didn't really like this movie for the laughs anyway. I wasn't here for the comedy. I enjoyed the scene where Ben longboards down a beautiful stretch of Icelandic road. I enjoyed the conversation Ben has with Sean on the mountainside. I enjoyed the message to get out there and live life. I didn't care about the comedy in this movie. It's almost like the movie critics are judging this as a straight comedy. And if it's not as funny as our sophisticated taste requires it to be, then we're just automatically going to write it off as this mediocre movie. One common belief that critics have about this movie is that it stumbles in its second half. Ben Kenningsberg writes, "It's once the daydreams stop and Mitty jets off to Greenland in search of Penn's itinerant shutterbug that the film takes an unexpected turn for the dull." So you like the Benjamin Button scenes better, Ben? Did you just want a full movie of Ben Stiller sitting on a porch with Kristen Wiig and more Stretch Armstrong set pieces? Is that what you wanted? I thought all of that was ridiculous after a while, and it's like, yes, we get it. This dude daydreams a lot, but is this going to, progress the story forward in any meaningful way? For me, the second half of the film is where it actually becomes something meaningful and good. Who knew that watching a guy live out his wildest dreams could be so fun and interesting? It's almost like the Hollywood critic crowd didn't want something so upbeat, inspirational, and just fun. Cormac O'Brien writes, "Ben Stiller's latest directorial effort offers the balmy reassurance of a hang in there kitty poster." Anne Hornaday writes, "The unevenness of The Secret Life of Walter Mitty and Stiller's recessive characterization of the title character keep it from being an all-out crowd pleaser." In the original short story, Walter doesn't go off on any kind of adventure, and by the end of the tale, he's imagining himself up against a wall, facing a firing squad. Charming. Yeah, Anne's right. They should have made that movie instead. It would have been a real banger. I thought it was great to give Walter's character an opportunity to live his dream life instead of just imagining it. It's a much better message that empowers the viewer instead of depressing them. And in a world full of people who are so scared to follow their dreams, this message is sorely needed. My sister has a neighbor in South Carolina who's literally never traveled outside of his state before. For some reason, it feels like nowadays the Hollywood critic crowd is more interested in being dark, gritty, and real rather than fun, inspirational, and positive. And whenever someone tries to remind us all that, yeah, you can chase your dreams and actually accomplish them, they just get mocked by all of the critics in Hollywood. Once again, A.O. Scott at the New York Times writes, "Our identification gives way to envy, and Mitty is another one of those enchanted people the rest of us can only dream of becoming." Of course, we can't all be Walter Mitty who sees a snow leopard, but we can make little steps, baby steps towards our dream life and actually realize it. I think this movie unfortunately suffers for how uplifting and positive it is. A lot of people don't want to be told that they have the power to realize their dreams, because then there's no built-in excuse explaining why they haven't accomplished it yet. They can't just blame politicians and billionaires because they're living a suboptimal life. Now all they can do is blame themselves, and they don't want to blame themselves. No, A.O. Scott of the New York Times, who's probably making 6 figures a year, you can absolutely follow your dreams and realize them. Absolutely. So, why is this film underrated? I think the biggest reason is because critics got jealous of the main character. They found it all too easy to crap on the main messages of this movie, knowing full well if they continue believing that living your dream life isn't possible, they wouldn't have to face the depressing fact that they've done little with theirs. Well, that's why The Secret Life of Walter Mitty is underrated. If you want the written version of this video, go check out my Substack. It's free to sign up. The link is in the description. I also have written versions of my other past videos if you want to binge and read all of them. That's really cool. I have a bunch of them up there already. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below on what you thought about Walter Mitty, whether it's underrated, overrated, whatever. Please click the like button and subscribe to my channel if you want more film breakdowns like this one. All right, guys, I will see you later. Bye-bye.